arm themselves with phrases that they can say during their first conversations, like, oh, wow, I've never heard that word before. Thank you, or what does that mean? Sorry, I've never studied that, like some little explanations that sound friendly, that give you information, and that make the other person feel comfortable too.
If you are a Brazilian, then you are no stranger to my guest today. Gavin Roy from the USA became an overnight celebrity in Brazil thanks to his YouTube channel, SmallAdvantages. He blew Brazilians' minds by teaching English while he taught himself Portuguese. He has acquired more than 2 million subscribers and has repeated his success by starting a second channel, where he does the same through a completely different language, Czech. So Gavin, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Gavin is going to give you some phenomenal English learning advice today. But quickly, before we get into that, if you are new here, every week we help you to understand fast speech, to be understood by anyone, and to connect to the world. So hit that subscribe button and the bell down below so that you don't miss a single new lesson. Just like real-lifer Lucy, who says that she has finally discovered that learning English can be fun.
The Nike slogan, just do it. I've heard so many people saying, I'm so afraid for my first conversation. Can you give me tips? And yes, I can give you tips. But at the end of the day, you are going to have to do it, and it won't be easy. That first conversation will probably be the worst conversation you've ever had. The awkward, you're going to feel bad about yourself. There's no way to go around it. But there's so much good that comes out of it, and every following conversation gets easier. It's just having that first conversation. And the same thing applies for my conterrâneos. We have like my fellow Americans, but there's a great word in Portuguese, conterrâneos, like con terra is earth, like people who share the same country as me. And hardly anyone learns languages here, but since I've become famous in Brazil and in the Czech Republic, my friends have come up to me like, oh, I want to learn German, or oh, I want to learn Spanish. Like, can you kind of give me some tips? And so, yeah, I sit down with them, talk about it. And it's probably happened maybe 50 times that someone has approached me. And to this date, only one person has actually sat down and taken the same journey that I have. And she has become remarkably fluent in Spanish. And it's the kind of thing, if you're thinking about it, stop thinking about it. Just do it, Same thing with creating YouTube channels. So many people have come up to me like, oh, I have this great idea for a YouTube channel, a ninja cooking show. Awesome, dude. Here's some tips. You should do that. Oh, okay, sweet. Yeah, I'll get. Not a video's created, So many things just echo in the chamber of the mind for forever and never become reality. And so over and over again, I see this piece of Nike advice, just do it. It's gonna be imperfect, but you're gonna improve, and let's make it a reality. That would be my TED Talk. I'd figure out a nice and eloquent way to deliver this message in a 12-minute space.
You're easing people into it in some sense, but that part is in some sense self-development in English. So I imagine it's things that will carry over into their life. So you're kind of using your English as a portal in that sense to not just improve your English, but also to improve other aspects of your life.
That's true, yeah. Whether it's going to law school or playing the guitar or getting better at painting. And in language learning specifically, the first time you learn a foreign language, you're learning two things. You're learning the language and you're learning how to learn a foreign language, which is why polyglots are amazing. But every single language that follows your first language gets easier and easier and easier because you know the hacks. You know that you don't need to be afraid for your first conversations. You know that spaced repetition system flashcard apps work. You know what to do. You know what works for you. You know you don't need to focus on grammar. And so in How to Fly in these classes in my course, I try to focus on that part of how to learn a foreign language, any foreign language or any skill really. Well, when I'm speaking Brazilian Portuguese to my followers there in Brazil, it helps them to see that I'm not speaking perfectly, that I still have a bit of an accent, and it makes them realize that they can let go of their standard of perfection. They need to sound like a native speaker with zero mistakes. I'm making mistakes and I struggle to find words every once in a while, but that's okay. That adds to your charm even when you have an accent. And so, yeah, to add to a point that I was just saying earlier, I think that helped me get rid of my perfectionism too. And it's a beautiful part of being able to have this exchange.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I heard you say something, because people obviously seeing you too nowadays, they probably, if they haven't tracked you so much, they might think it was really easy for you, or maybe you have some natural talent that they don't have, or whatever excuse that you can do it, but they can't. But I saw you say in an interview something like that you're not a language genius, that your passion makes you good at the languages that you learn. So where would you say that passion comes for you for learning Portuguese, Czech, Spanish?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember saying passion, and I think passion is a good word. I would say even more precise word would be dedication, in terms of when you're learning a language, you need to dedicate that time to studying flashcards, to scheduling conversations online. For me, it's just something that I'm interested in. That's like an easy answer. Two pieces of advice that helped me with this too. First is one that my dad always told me, which is always finish what you start. And I've always had this feeling I can never just read the first sentence of a book and say like, oh, this isn't for me. If I pick up a book, I'm gonna finish it. Dang it, I'm gonna finish it. Same thing with a language. If I start a language, I have this desire to reach fluency, which is why I know that I could study 20 languages if I wanted to, but I want to be conversant in the language that I start. And so I limit myself to 3 or 4 for now. And once I'm good, I'll go from there. The biggest thing that I do before starting a conversation or starting to speak in either Spanish or Portuguese is imagining myself either in Brazil or in Mexico. I've had very strong positive experiences in both countries. So I picture myself in the Yucatan Peninsula in Mérida in Mexico, where I've spent several summers, and I like get in this mindset. It's more than just the language. It's like the feels, the smells, the tastes of the food. And I prep myself that way before I'm going to speak. And then after that, during a conversation, obviously still trying to feel that way, but there are certain sounds that just don't work in Spanish that work in Portuguese, or vice versa. And so it's just this sort of like feeling that I have that each time that I'm gonna say something in Spanish that wouldn't work in Portuguese, I'm trying to like foster those feels a little more. That would be awkward if I tried to say in Portuguese. I don't have a good example right off the top of the head. But
I love that kind of like mental visualization exercise, in a sense of trying to really put yourself in like something that excites all of your senses into the language, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I've never heard anyone do that. I mean, I've heard a lot about using mental exercises for different things, and the visualization. They even talk about like pro athletes, for example, visualizing themselves, in the competition or something. So thinking about that for a language, and that is true when especially if you have the opportunity to travel, there's tend to be like very strong smells you can remember, or sights, or like the sounds, obviously, of the different languages and everything, or maybe the music that you love in that language.
That's such a good point. I've heard of like Michael Phelps visualizing each race before he swam, and I've never thought of it that way. But that's exactly what I suppose I'm doing in language too, is visualizing how it's gonna go. Yeah.
The topic of passion, dedication, and everything, because I'm the same. I would never consider myself a good language learner, at least not from the place of talent. Like, it doesn't come out of any natural talent that I have, but the thing that's always been key for me has been the passion, like figuring out something that I really adore about the culture. Something like Catalan is the language that I speak the best, foreign language I speak the best, but it's on a global scale completely useless language. It's spoken by 6 million people, but for me it's something that I absolutely love and everything, and so I'm able to connect to that passion. I'm able to connect to the culture and everything, and I live now in Barcelona, so it's very important to my day-to-day life. But I think that when you have that passion and everything, it definitely makes you unstoppable compared to someone who just has the natural talent.
That's true, yeah. And when you have passion, your reasons are different too, whereas the talent is just the propensity for that skill in and of itself.
Yeah, you're probably more likely to give up anyway if you have the talent but you don't have the motivation. Then it's like when things get tough or something, you might not be willing to push through that.
I 100% agree.
There's a ton more for you to learn with Gavin and other incredible teachers and experts. You can get the full interviews from Beyond Borders anywhere you listen to podcasts. However, I would recommend that you listen on the RealLife English app. Why? Because it is the only place where you can get a transcript for the full episode and learn all of the most important vocabulary and more. Plus, Many learners like you tell me that they are frustrated, that they don't have anyone to practice what they are learning with. Well, on the Real Life English app, you can have conversations in English with people from all around the world at the touch of a button and discover new cultures. So if you are ready to step outside of the classroom and to live your English, then download the app now by searching for Real Life English in the Apple app or Google Play Store. Or simply click up here or down in the description below.
You always hear people saying, I would learn English, but I don't have time for it. And I think I understand this sentiment, but I think a better way to phrase this, I don't have time for it, is it's not a priority in my life, essentially. Because you make time for the things that are important for you. The things that are most important for you, you will find the time to do. And if English isn't important enough for you in terms of you think like, that job promotion or that travel opportunity isn't as important as this, or my family comes first, which is totally understandable. That's totally okay. It's just you need to phrase it not as I don't have time for it, but instead it's not my highest priority.
Right. And really it's one of those things you were saying for Czech, I believe, that you spend 10 minutes a day studying flashcards, for example, that it's really hard to come up with the excuse that you don't have time, because you can always find like 5 minutes, 10 minutes here and there. You can listen to a podcast while you're commuting to work. You can listen to music while you're cooking your dinner in the evening. Whatever is the thing, it's always like there's that excuse that I don't have time really isn't valid when you get down to it. It's just a sense, like you said, of really looking clearly at your priorities or maybe your motivation, why are you learning the language and stuff, and being able to kindle that so that it helps to push you through those kind of excuses of not having time, or when you're just too tired at the end of the day, you're still going to watch that series in English instead of in your native language, for example.
Exactly. And that's a great point. Like, again, there's never been a better time to be a language learner, because we can have our phone with the flashcard app while we're waiting in line at the supermarket or on the bus. But even smaller chunks of time, like changing your phone language to English, is something I always recommend to my students, because when they look down for 10 seconds, they're getting 1 or 2 words like swipe, or click, like any of those words. Or putting a list of words on your mirror that in your bathroom when you're brushing your teeth for 2 minutes in the morning, 2 minutes at night. These are tiny chunks of time, but yeah, you're still doing something. So there are ways to hack life where you're always doing something. That's pretty cool.
Now, Gavin has such an inspiring story, how he has helped English learners while achieving his own language learning goals. Now, you don't need to be a native English speaker to do this. 2 of my previous guests, Anna from Ukraine and Veronica from Russia, both have created successful English learning channels sharing their own journeys of learning fluent English without living in an English-speaking country. Let's check out a clip from my interview with Veronica.
When I was still in middle school or in high school, it was really hard for me because I was trying to learn English. I was like constantly doing something, and a lot of my classmates didn't really understand me. They were like, why you're studying? Like, you should go party and not study. And I just really liked it. They didn't understand me. And at first it really hurt me because I was a teenager. I was like, oh my God, I don't have any friends. No one understands me.